Hello, everyone. Today's topic is on time, and we have 20 minutes for the topic of time boxing. Hello, everyone. My name is Otto Sichert. You are at Coffee Weekly, and next to me in the same screen this time is
Sheldon. How's it going, everybody? The audio today is going to be a bit weird, and we don't even know how it's going to be. Let's hope it's going to be fine because we are on a very fancy room together, and in a special place. We just it was a coincidence that we met in New York, and then we are doing this together, and we look like a news program from TV.
This is Coffee Weekly News.
But we are also here remotely. Our connection in Germany is
Hendrik, it's a pleasure to be with you. And let me tell you, sound seems okay. I can notice that you're in a different environment acoustically.
But that should be fine nonetheless. So let's get started right on topic. First question. Do you use time boxing in your private lives? So I start. Yes, I do sometimes, but I would love to use it a bit more.
Can you explain for the audience, me as well, what would be time boxing?
Okay, good point. So let's say, for example, it's a way of performing a task. So you can say, I want to climb this mountain. Well, there's only one achievable goal. You reach it when you're up on the mountain. Time boxing is a different approach. You want to say, I want to learn, let's say, 100 words in Swedish or another language, but you can say instead, I will take 20 minutes and I will get as much done as possible in that time. So that's the concept of time boxing, that the goal does not become like a measurable goal, but it becomes like a time, so to say. But I can also like give a bit of interpretation. So that's the concept. And maybe the story behind it is that people tend to be more productive, and it's easier to cut unnecessary stuff when you know the time will run out. And I mean, usually you have like deadlines and everything, but if you do like 20 minutes, literally, you have a meeting with an agenda, and we only have like, I think 17 and a half minutes left to talk on this topic, then we automatically tend to ignore the topics that are just like, off topic or everything. And we tend, that's my opinion, to produce topics that are more on point and more prioritized. But it might be a bit stressful on the other side. But, that's the TLDR of time boxing. So, do you use it?
Yeah, do you want to go first, right, Hendrik?
No, Sheldon, please.
All right, okay. So I think I've heard this concept before. It wasn't just fresh in my head right now. But I've never used it because I was a bit skeptical on the concept. However, I use kind of like a long-term form of time boxing, which is basically putting a deadline on things. And this year I had two examples that the deadline was put on me. So the first one, I was preparing the leveling of the ground of my backyard at home, and I bought a garden shed, and I had 2 months to level the ground, but the guys from the garden shed called me and said that they would deliver in 2 weeks. So I had 2 weeks to level the backyard, and it worked great. Like I worked my ass off, and it was really hard. I had like injuries in my hand because I was doing it by myself, and I leveled 3 tons of gravel just by myself in 2 weeks, and it was fine. It was really, really stressful, but it was good to have this deadline. Otherwise, I would just postpone it, and whatnot. And the other thing is that we had a few things, my wife and I, to deliver in terms of some admin stuff that we had to do before our trip to Brazil. If you remember from the last episode, I was recording from Brazil, and I had just the deadline of the trip to deliver this stuff. And it was really nice because we were like, okay, time's running out, we need to do this. So this sense of urgency, like a healthy sense of urgency, is good. I'm a bit skeptical with these because it can be overused. Like if everything is urgent, nothing is urgent. So, but yeah, I've seen some good use of time boxing. So that's me.
Yeah, I can connect to that, the stressful part. So if you know you have only limited time, it's always like that with limited resources. You start using it a lot more consciously. and you will think twice about your actions and the usage of your resource, and in this case, time. Another example for this would be that I had in the past the startup weekend. Basically, you have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to prepare a business idea, and on Friday afternoon at 16 o'clock, it's going to be pitched to potential investors. So use your time as you want to get the best pitch done. And sometimes it's also about what's the goal of the time box. Sometimes it's clear, and sometimes you need to check, okay, all right, what's the most efficient way to get at this? And personally, I like it a lot, I have to say. I think it produces great results. My free time was sometimes time boxed, or the sport exercises. So for example, I try to hit a certain sweet spot in workouts. So I try to have like 45 seconds of, I don't know, tension on the muscle per set. And then I have like a time boxed break. So for a lot of things that give you a good feeling, considering time-wise, I think time boxing is good, like from the gut feeling point of view. And I want to bring the conversation forward by saying it has also a downside. For example, on work, I have a time box right now to upgrade libraries, and we time box to that. The problem is I have like 8 hours per sprint to upgrade libraries, and the problem is so big that I'm never going to finish probably if we leave it like that. And the debt, the technical debt, is bigger and bigger and bigger, and it will, like, in comparison to where a task, I just say, okay, I work until I'm finished. This is like a contradicting view. What do you think on that, guys?
Yeah, I want to pick it up from there and ask Otto, because I have a similar experience when it comes to, so there are some tasks that are easy to be broken down. Like, for example, I have 10 minutes, I'm going to wash the dishes, and then I can wash just a few cups and come back later and wash the rest. But when it comes, okay, I have 10 minutes between like 2 meetings, for example, I'm going to code this piece of thing that I want to code. And then you enter the flow, and then and there's actually a book called Flow for the people who wants to further investigate on the subject. But when you are on the flow, it's hard to get out of it, because like when you just got into the flow, then your time that you schedule for the thing ran out. So what do you do, and how do you manage time boxing when it comes to like flow activities?
So I think that's a very, very like two combined topics, because if you know, I mean, usually with time boxing, you know your time frame, you know when, and you know for how long. So I would say if there was a task that requires, you know, getting into the flow, like it takes like at least 15 minutes to read up on everything, and then you're like in the tunnel, and then you're starting productive. So if you only have, like, say, half an hour, I would just probably not even do it, because in this half an hour, I will be effective for like 5 minutes. And this is like kind of a waste of time. But if you're in the, like, for example, you have 8 hours, then you can kind of flexible schedule your time and say, okay, I'm gonna, you know, maybe do focus hour for 3 hours, then I'm gonna have lunch, and then I'm out of the flow anyway. I answer some messages, some emails and everything, and then I have another, like, you know, 2 or 3 hours of focus time. And that's kind of nice. But yeah, I think this might be contradicting. So if time boxing forces you to be on a like short breaks as well, this can be very contradicting with like things that require you to get into it. Like, for example, as an artist, to get creative. I mean, I'm not like creative on demand. Like, I mean, some people can, but I certainly can't. But to pick up on what Hendrik said, so yeah, this is like, I think the gist of time boxing. So everything in a nutshell. So yeah, you will probably not finish, but I think that is intentional, because I mean, this is a bit technical, but tech debt means that your product works, but the implementation and the way it is built might not be the best. But let's say from a business side or from an outside perspective, or as a customer using the app, I mean, you don't feel the tech debt necessarily. So the app works. So therefore, I think time boxing is actually a good approach, because the goal does not have to be 0 bad code. The goal has to be, well, if you buy something, it has to work. I mean, if you click on login, you have to be logged in. There can't be any time boxing. So in that sense, maybe the goal is, you know, to reduce it. The goal is not to be at 0, because I would also say if you have no bugs in your code, then maybe you spend your time a bit wrong. So yeah, as a developer, I can say I know the struggle. You tend to have tasks like do this, and then you work and you come back and like, here, I'm done. But this task is not like the others. It's a time box task, and
all right,
it has its purpose, I would say.
Yeah. So what would you time box and what would you not time box?
I defer to Henrik. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, yes. So routines. I would say routines can be time boxed, but goals, they're probably not. Like it's probably also a thing of importance. So are you guys okay?
Yes. Technically,
All right.
we're back.
Nice. Okay. So basically my short version, I think maybe it's a matter of priority when I think about it. So the most important things in your life, you probably don't want a time box. For example, your house is burning. You don't want a time box getting out of the house. And if I didn't make it, then like I'm gonna stay here and go to my next activity. So maybe it's more a habit thing, something like stretching, meditation, cooking well, or cleaning up the apartment, like the good stuff in your life, maybe that you also sometimes need discipline to do. Maybe that's the things that you can time box well.
That's a good approach. And then what would you not time box?
Yeah, like important things, like high priority, like and yeah, things that can basically not postpone, where postponing is not an option. Your girlfriend wants to be picked up at the airport. You cannot say like, okay, I've been driving 45 minutes already, time box over. So now I'm gonna go home and do something else. So at some points, it's just not acceptable, I think.
There was one concept in the beginning we mentioned quite a lot was the aspect of stress, because I think one implied thing with time boxing is, yes, it is stressful. I mean, it can be good, positive stress. You can be like get a little like kick in the ass to like do some stuff. But I think if it's overused, if you have a very, very tight schedule, for example, I found interesting that you mentioned that you would schedule your free time as well. For example, that is something that I tend to not do, and that's why I'm sometimes late. I agree with that, but I find it hard if I know I have like it's the rest of the day and I only give myself 3 hours of rest, because sometimes I might even more or not even as much, but this little aspect of stress might have some other like consequences on the thing itself. So how do you do? How can you be relaxed with a time box?
Yeah, I see it from the positive side. You could say like, all right, my day is so busy. I only have 3 hours and I really managed to get this 3 hours of time slot free, because like I have something to do before and I have something to do afterwards and I have to do 1,000 different things. But now I have like just a break of 3 complete hours where I have nothing to do but to relax. I was talking a bit about the negative, but I want to get back to the positive, because I've like so good experiences with that. And again, like if I know, okay, like between my super busy day, I have 3 hours of chill time, like that's so nice. And you really appreciate, like you remember when we started, you really appreciate every second of it, because you know it's so valuable and it's gonna end. And I don't know, that's just somehow enhancing the feeling of me for the time being passed. Sheldon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I can connect several subjects with what you just said. One of these is the episode we did on quiet quitting, and I'm mentioning this one because some people, although some people said that with people working from home they would work less, what things have shown is that people actually work more, and there you can actually find some memes on internet that. People saying or complaining that now after the pandemic, they just wake up, work, and then they wait for the time to go to bed. And for example, the company that I work for, they talk a lot about your free time, especially because we work on a non-linear schedule. So I can work a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the evening. Or some people, they work throughout the day and they seem to be always working because their head is always on working mode. So I think when you are working from home, you have to be very intentional, even with your rest. And I was going through these, and I'm right now on a part of my life that I'm also thinking of intentionally scheduling my rest. And like when the time of work is done, I actually finish work and I actually intentionally go rest. And also it's good for me because I could use the resting time just to be on Netflix, passively doing nothing. But now that I'm intentionally time boxing my rest, I can say like, oh, I have 3 hours, so maybe I should do some painting, or maybe I should take care of the backyard, or like something that's an activity and it's an active rest. And we talked about some different types of rest in the previous episode as well. So yeah, so I think that's more or less what I think about it.
Nice. Sorry to interrupt you, Sheldon, but I have actually a thought that I want to give to Otto. So I was actually thinking, like, maybe we have a contradicting view. I think, like, what you just said before to me, considering the stress, maybe you should time box the stuff that not so fun for you, like the duties, like the chores. So for you, it would be maybe something else, like time box the activity before the rest. So the rest is untime boxed. So maybe we're just different in
I
this
think,
way, like
yeah,
we
it's
see
actually
time
funny
boxing.
because if you think if you have something time boxed in the morning, in the evening, then by definition, the middle is also time boxed, right? But I think the one aspect that is very important, that after the time box finishes, you know that you're done. I think that's a huge bonus to it, because
psychological.
yeah, you might be stressed during the time, but because you said yourself, I mean, you might not be finished, but you tell yourself, well, I am finished now. This is how it is. It's good enough. I decided that, I mean, if it's 100% done, cool. If it's 10% done, well, then that's how it is. But you achieve, I mean, you always guarantee yourself a success. I think that's kind of a nice thing. So much more depth into this context.
Definitely.
Then one question I have. So when it comes especially to stress, like, would you, I mean, do you tend to look at the time often, or do you just, you just go in the flow, so to say, and then very rarely, oh, how much time do you have? And then, oh, you're almost done. Or do you constantly look at the time?
In my most productive times, I check the time very frequently to take a look on how long I did something. Honestly, I'm not in such a productive part of my life right now, and I want to change that soon again. I had a lot of traveling and stuff like that, stuff that got me out of the loop. But I want to get back there, and I would say I check it frequently. Sheldon, how about you? And how do you feel like that this meetings, for example, time boxed, how does it differ the experience for you now?
Yeah, so for me, I cannot concentrate in between meetings. So whenever I have 2 meetings in a day, now I'm very thankful that I have very few meetings in my current work. But if I have 2 meetings in a row or a short space in between meetings, I tend to not do any flow activity like coding, for example. I would rather do like reading some emails or something like that. And also this relates a lot to time management, and we have a next episode with this. And my wife, which is on the backstage today, she has a lot of knowledge on this matter. And she is kind of like, so I read the Atomic Habits book, and now I'm putting in practice with her, checking on me as an accountability partner, checking on me.
So you trained your girlfriend?
Yeah, so we are like improving together. Let's put it this way. Nice. We have a very interesting thing about time boxing, which is like when you're traveling, like we are here in New York, you have like places to visit, and they are distant from each other. So you have to manage like how much time you have to get there, the time you want to spend there, and the time to go to the other location. And sometimes this is a lot of time. And when you have the idea of time boxing, you understand that, oh, okay, I have, let's say, 12 hours in a day to explore. So I can only fit this amount of activities in a day, and then the rest is going to be the next day. And suddenly the list of things that you want to do, they get shorter and shorter, and you have to prioritize and prioritize. So I think time boxing and time management is really, really important, especially if you want to do lots of things at one time.
Yeah, maybe like one of the biggest benefits is like you have to think about your time in the first place, because otherwise, like, you would probably not think and just like let it happen instead of directing the way time flows.
So just on the topic of mentioning the time, we have 1 minute left. So the closing thoughts on this, I think, yeah, you precisely described, I think, one of the biggest benefits. Time boxing forces you to prioritize. You tend and you are more available with your time because you only have this amount of time. And yes, it very often means you have to cut on the lower end. But maybe that's a good thing, because you only end up seeing the spaces you really want to see. Maybe the space you were unsure about, well, maybe you don't go there. Or maybe this task that wasn't so important, you just don't do it. So I think there's a value for it if done not too often, not too little. Try it out.
Yeah, my closing thoughts is you can research Warren Buffett top five lists or something like this. It's basically you write down the 25 priorities you have, and you organize them, and you pick up the first 5 ones and throw out the rest. So that's one way of doing, a bit radical, but anyway. And yeah, so I think that understanding your priorities and also looking back at time, like, oh, I thought I would do this in 2 hours and it ended up doing in 5 hours. So I need to read to feedback my management and understand better how to time box the next time.
Yeah, so my final thought is that I don't have a final thought anymore because the time box is over. And that's what essentially time boxing is about. And maybe that gets you to think. Thanks, guys.
That's a deep thought. Thank you so much. And that's all we had. Thank you. See you next
See you
week.
later.
Bye.